Al-Tai. You know, Muhammad Basil Al-Tai. He's been teaching physics for more than 40 years at undergraduate and postgraduate levels in Yarmouk University and several others, and he's now the emeritus professor at the University of Leeds in theoretical physics department. And you know, he's published more than 50 scientific papers which are peer reviewed, okay, so that's a big accomplishment. And then more than 200 articles for public, you know, for me and you, ordinary people. He's written on science and Quran and many other aspects of science as well. He's been teaching physics for more than, as I said, and his subject expertise is in quantum field theory. Okay, I don't know what that is there.
14 books also.
Mashallah, 14 books, mashallah,
yes.
on
3 in English, 3 in English, and the rest.
Yeah, I've read one of them, mashallah. I have your the
yes.
Divine Word and
Divine Word and the Grand Design.
Amazing, divine and philosophy of science, mashallah. His idea and development and taking the ilm al-qalam, which is one of the sciences that the Muslims you can say invented back, you know, nearly 1200 years ago. He's now taken that to a new level using physics, which is really amazing. So he also delivers a course on astronomy for non-scientists, and inshallah I've been talking to him about delivering that through Kerimeya, so inshallah we're hoping to do that in November. 4 lectures on astronomy for all of us. I hope you'll be interested in that. Who would be interested in learning astronomy? Yes, it will help us to overcome this nonsense that we have, you know, amongst us, sadly. He's an amazing teacher, you know, with a deep understanding and practices of pedagogical principles. And what I mean there is, you know, he wants his students to actually understand, become critical thinkers, and to become good scientists, really. And so, you know, I'm really delighted that we have Professor Muhammad Basil Al-Tai. You know, Basil is the champion, and Al-Tai, of course, is a famous figure, legendary figure in our Islamic traditions of the most generous. So he is the champion, and he's also this amazing, generous person who wants to give. And you know, the best thing people like him can give is his science and his understandings of that. And mashallah, he's doing that through his writings and speeches. So Professor Basil, over to you for your lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Musharraf, and I would like to thank Karimia Institute for this invitation. I did my studies in Manchester University long time ago, and I obtained my PhD in 1978 in quantum cosmology and quantum field theory in curved space-time. That time, actually, I was reading the Quran. I mean, not for ibadah. I was reading it for study. And in fact, something happened that made me more attracted to the Quran from the scientific point of view. Nowadays, we have a movement in Islam called I'jaz Ilmi. And I want to elaborate here a little bit on this. The I'jaz Ilmi is after the scientific science in the Quran. And my talk today, this evening to you, is about scientific science of the Quran. But I should make it clear that my approach in the explanation, giving explanation to the scientific science of the Quran is different from the I'jaz Ilmi. So I am not after the I'jaz Ilmi of the Quran. I am after a different approach and a different target, as far as I can see. The scientific science of the Quran are not to present I'jaz Ilmi. It is to present the proof that this Quran, this text, is from a divine source. It is not something that can be written by a human being. In my opinion, that's why it says Tilka ayatul kitab. Ayat means proofs, barahin. Ayat in Arabic, barahin also. تلك آيات الكتاب. So whenever it marks something scientific, we Muslim need to verify that. They say Quran have said, oh, Quran is not a book of physics or astronomy or cosmology or chemistry or biology. Alif Lam Mim, tilka ayatul kitab. And the proof is in this ayat. The proof of what? The proof that it is from a divine source. That's why we should explain those areas. This proof does not come in one sentence or in one time. It comes as layers, unfolding during the centuries until the doomsday. So it unfolds for the people. That's why the Quran says, وَيَرَى الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ هُوَ الْحَقُّ. Those who are given knowledge, they see the Quran as a true word of God. And that's what I'm trying to do in my talk today. Let us look at the religious scriptures. What makes a religious scripture attractive? What kind of criteria we have? I actually looked through the references, and I found that the best reference, I found several references. One of the best is the Oxford Handbook of Religious Conversion. What makes anybody admires the Quran, whether he's Muslim or not Muslim? There are certain criteria. It is a personal attitude, correct? But as I said, there are certain criteria defined by some scholars. This include historical context, interpretation, moral and ethical teaching, logic and reasoning, spiritual and emotional attraction or impact, translation. And that's why the majestic Quran translation could be more influential than other translations. So translations and versions, and then the comparative studies also, it makes, yes, some criteria. I found that there are two most important, essential criteria for appreciating the value of any religious, I'm not saying the Quran only, any religious scriptures, and that is authenticity and consistency. And consistency, by the way, to tell you one, it is one of the most important items on judging a theory, a scientific theory. A scientific theory, if it is inconsistent, it can be proved wrong from inside, and that kills the theory. A scientific theory has to be consistent. A theory of physics or biology or chemistry, or also the Quran comes to conform with these two, by the way, the authenticity and consistency. But then we have to show, verify that it is consistent, verify that it is authentic, which means the source cannot be Muhammad himself. He went and wrote the Quran. We can prove that. How? By chasing the verses related to scientific, to astrophysical phenomena, perhaps also biological, I don't know. My specialization allows me to chase those items, those verses which are related to astronomy and cosmology. And I found the wealth, great wealth in the Quran. This lecture is only a small portion, very small portion. Second, we should also look at the scope of validity. Any book has to be read within the scope of what is claimed in that book. I mean, we cannot say this is right or wrong unless we see what's claimed. I mean, what's wrong or what's right in the other scriptures other than the Quran, I mean. Verification is well known, the way how to verify. Even as I said, I insist in science. I've been trained to be a scientist, but I can't do that. And the scope of validity would include that the following. As I said, we should read within the claims of the Quran and the claims of the Muslims. A divine word, it is a divine word, the Quran, revealed to Muhammad. That's what the Quran says. And it has been revealed, history tells us that it has been revealed 1400 years ago. It is also, it scribes from the knowledge of the divine. That's what Quran. أنزله بعلمه. أنزله بعلمه. That's what it says. علم Allah means. And contains signs of its own authenticity. Where I can find that? In the ويرى الذين أوتوا العلم الذي أنزل إليك من ربك الحق. Those who are given knowledge, they know that it is the truth. So we should chase the knowledge if we are men who are of knowledge. Once we are given the knowledge, we should chase those verifications. What are the verifications? Verses and sentences alluding to natural objects and phenomena. Day, night, sun, moon, etc. Been rivers, mountains has been. It's part of this text in the Quran. We should look at that. Many sentences of scientific value contained in the Quran can be discussed and interpreted in the context of our current scientific knowledge. But again, I stress the need to consider at least the above 4 contextual claims. Not, for example, assuming that everything in the Quran then is explainable. No. It's not everything explainable. Why? Because one item, it says, one of the claims, that it is from the knowledge of God. And we don't know the knowledge of God. The other thing, it is science is developing. I mean, science has not reached the end. There will be discoveries in 2 years' time, 5 years' time, 50 years' time, 5,000 years' time, if we are living, the humanity, And science is changing while the Quran is fixed as a text. This we should know. As a text is fixed, but as meaning is not fixed. It has several layers, unfolding, as I said, during the time. Why it is as such? It is to prove that it is the divine source. It is from a divine source. So don't ask me that every ayah, every verse in the Quran I should explain. No. Sometimes there are ayahs which I say, Allahu bi muradihi a'lam. God knows. We have to wait. But thank God we are in an age, in a century, that we have immense amount of evidence on this line of thought. If you ask me about the same question about 500 years ago, I would be really puzzled with certain verses which I am going to explain freely and happily today. But if you ask me about 500 years ago, I would have been puzzled. I'll try to glimpse on a few examples of many others, as I said, which can be considered strong evidence of authentication that the Quran is from a divine source. I will take in all this lecture day and night, no more, only day and night. By the way, there are other examples. For example, the fate of the sun. development of the sun. I will take the day and night in this lecture and say, in two successive verses in Surah Al-Qasas, the Quran tells us that say, O Muhammad, means say, if Allah made night continuous for you till the day of resurrection, who is a God who then can bring you light? قل أرأيتم إن جعل الله عليكم الليل سرمدا. سرمدا means endless, continuous. إلى يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم. Who will bring you light to see? Then in this next verse, directly, the next verse, قل أرأيتم إن جعل الله عليكم النهار سرمدا إلى يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم بضياء. If Allah made the night continuous until the day of resurrection, who will bring you, nahar or light to see? Here we have two things. One, why we have two verses successively coming. The second, which is also very, very important, is it possible? Because Allah is challenging us. But is His challenge in the Quran, in these two verses, is verifiable, is correct? I asked my student, by the way, when I taught astronomy, I asked them this question. I bring these two ayahs and say, now tell me, is it possible? They say yes. How? Stop the earth rotating around its axis. I'm sorry, this will not work, because the earth is also rotating around the sun. And then he says, the student says, oh, professor, I'm sorry, we have to stop also the earth, prevent the earth from rotating around the sun. I said, but you cannot do that, because this means abolishing the laws of nature or the laws of gravity. Because once you have a body, a massive body, in a gravitational field, it has to move. No way. Or it will be another creation, خلقا آخر. This is something we don't know. We are living in a universe which is controlled by gravity. So you cannot tell me that, you cannot ask me to stop the sun, the earth rotating around the sun. Perhaps you can ask me to make the earth slowly, very, very slowly moving. Like Venus, for example. Planet Venus rotates in 247 days, Earth days. Very slow, correct, but it's also rotating around the sun in 225 days. That's why the daytime on Venus is very long day. It's 247 days of the earth. So you can multiply by 24 hours and know how many hours a day, the day of. Our day, thank God, is 24 hours. But in Venus, this beautiful planet which you see in the sky, very beautiful. Sometimes you see it, they call it morning star, because we see it in the eastern horizon, above the eastern horizon, and sometimes they call it appears after sunset in the western horizon, and we call it evening star, or the ancient were calling that. It's not a star actually, it is a planet. Anyway, I'm going back to this. So we have to verify. I'm sorry, your answer is wrong, my dear student. You have to find something else. The answer is, I cut it short. If Allah has made the time of revolution of the earth around its axis equal the time of revolution, and it shows here, around the sun, then as you see, when the earth is moving quarter around the sun, quarter revolution in its orbit around the sun, and it is also making quarter revolution around its axis, then the arrow will point to the sun, and this part will be day and will be day here. Continue the circle, day here, day here, day here, day here, there, eternal. Continuous day. And the other part, Sarmadan, without breaking the laws of nature or laws of astronomy or gravity or anything, without making miracles, by the way. Mind you, God does not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does not rule this universe with miracles. Allah rules the universe with laws. Who is the term?
Before you go any further, just explain that
Yeah.
slowing of the rotation of the earth
Yes.
and matching that of its
Matching the
rotation.
period of rotation of the
Just
earth,
explain that.
which is 24 hours,
Yes.
should come to become a year. 365 days, 0.24.
So it is a slow down to that level.
If it slows down to that level, it's possible. And it's good that God has given us an example that such a slowing down can be achieved because it is Venus. Venus
is an example.
is an example. Somebody might say it's not possible. How? Well, how? Very easy. He makes collision between planets, as it happened with Venus, by the way. And not only slows down. Venus is rotating in a different direction. Yes. So if you say that the sun is appearing from the west horizon on Venus, yes, it is. It rotates.
Clockwise.
We find in these two verses also another. Why two verses? Why Layl, Nahar? And it is also a shade, by the way. The shade during the day get change in the length. The minimum length is at noon time, the exact Islamic noon, and it is the astronomical noon, when the sun is at the highest position. And this, wherever you are, is the shortest length of your shade. If you stand or you bring a stick, this is, by the way, in this time it points to exactly to geographical, and that's what we want to talk about in astronomy course. It will point to the exact north. And this has implications even about your, even in Islam, about the times of the Salah. It has implication, will be given later on. So let us go back to it says that God, the Creator, could have made the shade still. How? It's very strange how it would become still. If there is sun, there is earth, there is light, how it would become still? Again, one would say, well, it's by stopping the earth rotating around its axis, and then he will also need to stop it rotating around the sun and break the laws of nature and make a mess in the laws of nature and this universe, and which will not. But if you go back to what I said in the previous slide about what is called tidally locked orbit, this situation shown. If you have this situation, then your sun, the sun, will be in a fixed position in the sky. It will not move. You will have continuous day, continuous night on the other side of the globe, but from the continuous day on a position, the surface, the hemisphere,
just to help.
Yeah, please.
Understand. what Professor Basel is here telling you is very simply how truthful the Quranic verse is.
Exactly.
Right?
And how
When it
exact.
says, oh, this can't happen. He's saying, no, of course it can. And this is the proof that it can. Therefore, what he's saying is, whatever the Quran says is truthful. Look, I'm giving you proof this is possible, okay? That's what he's showing you.
As I said, if 500 years somebody comes and say, your Quran is wrong because it says God can stop can make the shade still, and this will never happen. This is never happen. I can only say by miracle. And he say, what kind of miracle? Then the whole universe is run by miracle. And Newton says it is not miracle. It says there is a laws of mechanics and gravity. So your Quran is not correct. But now we understand that the Quran is correct. The sun will be standing in a fixed position all the time, and that's what makes the shadow still. Yes.
Could you elaborate on the verse وَكُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ?
No, can we?
Yeah, this is another thing. We will. Yeah, this. I'm sorry. This is another subject, or could be explained another context. So here we can see that actually God could have made us in such a situation where the day is eternal, the night on the other half of the globe is eternal or continuous, and the shade is still. No problem. It could have been. Question. Do we have such an example in our real universe now? Yes.
Can you just go back to the verse, please?
Yeah.
Please, this one thing.
This one?
Okay, yeah, that's from Surah.
This is 25.
So Surah Al-Furqan. Surah Al-Furqan. Okay, fine. Jazakallah, thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Jazakallah.
Now, if I verify this, what does it mean? As I said, I repeat, if I was told this 500 years ago or challenged by, first, I cannot verify it. Second, I cannot stand the challenge of that person who is asking me. And then I would say, look, I believe in the Quran. That's what the utmost I can say. I believe in the Quran because there are other signs which proves to me that the Quran is correct. That's it. That's the maximum I can go. But I can't prove or verify or authenticate the Quran. Now I can authenticate and prove. That's why I say always, science can elevate, can raise can help us understand the Quran. Because the Quran started with the word اقرأ. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. اقرأ. This word came to people who rarely read. In whole Mecca, you couldn't have 2, 3, or 10 copies of books. Any book. Before Islam, I mean. In Mecca. And he comes, read. What should I read? I'm not a reader. Read. And this read is for you, and for you, and for you. Now, in this age, you should read and learn and strive and struggle for knowledge, because you, the Muslims, are the best qualified to absorb science and belief. We have two things. Many other peoples who get Nobel Prize, etc., they have science, they have knowledge, technology, great. But we have also, in addition to that, we can have what? Or we have basically the Iman, the belief. That what makes me encourage all Muslims to, because they are basically qualified by becoming a Muslim you are submitting or subscribing to investigate the nature, investigate the world. قل سيروا في الأرض فانظروا كيف بدأ الخلق. بدأ. This is very. God says, go around on the earth, in land, and see how God started the creation. It's not said to Darwin. It's said to the Muslims. But unfortunately, during the last centuries, 5 or 6 centuries, Muslims went lazy. They don't take adventure.
Can we stop here for Salatul Asr and then inshallah come back in 10 minutes? So